Today we're going to be going over 10 essential items that I keep in my kitchen. These are either nice little upgrades to functional things that you use just while you're baking, or they're going to be aesthetic updates which just make your baked goods a little bit nicer in presentation when you give them to your friends and family. So hopefully you get some ideas from this video. I'll also be linking all of the items I go through today down below in case you'd like to check them out for yourself. So let's get started. So number one would be these silicone baking gloves. The reason I have these as an upgrade is because I had cloth baking gloves for a long time and they always got dirty, they always got burned, and they'd get thin in areas where I wasn't sure if I'd put my hand in there if I was still going to feel the heat from the pan or the tray that I was taking out of the oven. So once I got these, I was very happy with their durability. You never feel the heat and you don't worry about them getting dirty because you can just clean them off right away. So these are a great upgrade to the traditional cloth baking gloves. Next are these jumbo piping bags. Now I mentioned these jumbo ones specifically because I've also gotten smaller bags here. These always get messy if they're not large enough at the top, because typically you'll throw these in a container and fold over the top. When they get too small, things just get really messy really quickly, so there's no issues I've had with having extra large bags, so that'd be something I recommend having. The number of applications you'll find for having jumbo piping bags is almost infinite. I use these all the time, even when I'm not expecting to, just because they work so well. One additional thing I'd mention for the piping bags is that those work great with this silicone mold I have, and I'll attach it down below. I use these for New York style cookies where you have a center inside of the cookie. So I'll pipe whatever center I'm going to use in the cookie into these molds, if it's stewed apples, frosting, cookie butter, and then freeze these, and they're great for using inside of the middle of cookies. The next thing on my list would be to get your basic ingredients that you keep on hand all the time into containers that are nice to work with. So for me, that's sugar, flour, powdered sugar, and brown sugar. It's so much nicer for me when I have to go in here, and it keeps it from being a mess of taking flour out of the bag and some spills, and I'm trying to top it off. And just in general, these are much more functional to work with. But the one adjustment I would make if I were to buy these again would be to buy containers with wider mouths. I have trouble sometimes when I'm taking flour or sugar out and trying to level it with that sugar or flour not making its way back into the container, something I think would be resolved with wider mouth containers. Now this one is one of my favorites because every time I get to use it, I know how annoying it was in the past before I made the change, and that is to get pre-cut parchment paper. So that's this right here. Now, the parchment paper you're probably used to dealing with is on a roll. You never know what length you need, and then you end up ripping it. It rips uneven. The entire thing is just unpleasant. So every time I pull this out and put it on a cookie sheet, it looks great. I'm always reminded of what it used to be like and how much nicer it is now. And I make sure to get the brown paper just because it's more visually pleasing to me. And then I also will add it into, if I'm putting cookies into a container, I'll take this and lay it inside of the container and around the edges just to make the presentation a little bit nicer. It makes it feel more crafty and like it's coming from an actual shop. Next is both a visual and a functional change, and that would be to get yourself a jumbo muffin tin. So the presentation here that changes is your muffins look much more like they're from a bakery when you make them so much bigger in these tins, and they're really not that hard to change. So you just take whatever muffin recipe you're using and increase the batter that you're taking into these tins, and then increase the baking time until a skewer comes out without batter on the skewer. So it's not really a recipe change other than you're just adding more batter into these. And then after you get the muffin tin, you get these nice fluted muffin liners. These look so much more like they came from a bakery than the typical muffin liners that you'll get in the grocery store. The last time I took this into work, everyone was very surprised that these didn't come from a bakery or a grocery store. So these really elevate the experience, and they're fun to peel off of the muffins. So something I would recommend. They work great with these jumbo muffin tin trays. The next thing on the list that's probably not surprising would be to get a KitchenAid mixer, and there's plenty of different options that you can look at. There's the tilt head, which are the ones that go like this, And then there are the bowl lift. Those are typically going to be your larger, more powerful mixers. Those work great for big families, but for the average person, these are going to be just fine. There's the classic and then the artisan, and then there's even a smaller one called the mini, I believe, which could work in situations where space is limited, like apartments, tiny homes, things like that. But for the average person, I would recommend just the typical classic one. And then something else that I didn't know about is that you can get glass bowls. So if you like to take pictures while you're baking, this allows you to see whatever you're mixing in your bowl much more easily, and you can film it, things like that. This one is probably pretty specific to me, but I'm always taking baked goods to places in this 8 by 8 inch pan. So for me, I would invest in getting a pan that you're proud of, that looks nice, and that way when you take your baked goods places, it makes them look that much better. One thing that I've added over time are these small bags that have self-adhesive at the top. So if I place a couple cookies in here, I can pull this off and then seal the cookies individually. It's a great thing if you want to have bake sales where you're trying to sell these, or even if you just want to have these individually when you're giving them out to people. These are always a nice thing to be able to grab. And you can play around with buying different sizes that suit the things that you bake. For a long time, I had measuring cups and measuring spoons that were plastic. And the one thing that always bothered me was I wasn't sure if I could wash them in the dishwasher. So one thing I changed was to get metal or copper spoons. And now it's always so much nicer when I'm done with something. If I had like marshmallow fluff I had today on one of these things, and I knew I could just throw it into the dishwasher and I'd be good. So that was a change that I don't think I'll ever go back to using plastic spoons again. So there you have it. Those are my 10 recommendations. I hope you learned something, found something useful, and I'd love to hear your ideas if you have any other suggestions for things that you've changed in your kitchens that you really love working with or presenting alongside your baked goods. I'd love to hear it. Add them down in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.